You know, you can get kind of spitty with a new puppy, but you shouldn't get injured. You know, most of them are kind of mouthy because they don't understand boundaries, but a few of them actually try to bite. Has anybody here had a puppy kind of nips and mouths, and you know, you need to know what to do about that? Well, you do, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to share some information. And in fact, if you have an adult dog that's kind of mouthy and nippy, by all means, let me know about that too. And Cindy, hello Cindy, thank you so much for coming. I'm delighted that you're here. So, Cindy knows who I am. A lot of other people do too. But in case we haven't met, I'm veterinarian Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine, which is all about issues right up here between the ears. Dogs certainly, and cats and other species, are very prone to disorders of the neurotransmitters and the circuits of the nerves in the brain, much like people, because the brain is considered the most complex organ in the body. And so people are looking for simple solutions. Well, I get that. I'm all the time looking for simple solutions to every problem in my life, but the reality is that only a few of them are simple. But we're going to talk today about stuff that's actually pretty simple most of the time. And whoops, hey, I've got a lot of people showing up. Carolyn, when you're ready, I'll take that iPad so I can actually read things without leaning into my iPhone to, you know, scare people. Anyway, so anybody has a question, by all means type it into the comment line, or if you've had a problem with mouthy, nippy dogs, or even aggressive dogs, and you know, there are puppies who will snarl and lunge and bite, and those can be special problems. Let's talk about those a little bit. So if you've had an experience like that, or you have one now, put that in there. But frankly, I've been in practice for so many years, 40 plus in general medicine, as well as my exclusive behavior practice now. So if you have problems or questions about anything pet related, cats or dogs, go ahead and lay it on me. Let's see what we can do. Oh, Carla, hola to you too. Carla and I are, we're bilingual. We know how to say hello. And and I had a very mouthy 6-year-old basset. Oh, thanks, Carolyn. And little cat treats. Thank you very much. Here, Gaston. There you go. Had a mouthy 6-year-old basset hound foster puppy. Oh, Charlene, hello. Charlene, where are you from? Remind me. Well, here you go. Here, Tony T. There you go, baby. Do you still have that basset hound puppy, Cindy? Maybe you don't. Anyway, if you're going to foster pets, and I'm so glad you're doing that, that's sorely needed here in Albuquerque, that's the kind of thing that they do. And you can set them up for a lifetime of you know, healthy behavior. We have new research, by the way, showing that puppies who are harshly treated are more prone not only to anxiety-related and fear-related behaviors, but things that you wouldn't even realize are can even happen, is like noise phobias, because they were, frankly, inappropriately treated when they're babies, often by people who believe they're doing the right thing, but they're not. So, yes, the Basset Hound was adopted. Oh, wonderful. And you know, the truth is that puppies, you know, there's a lot of parallels between dogs and humans. There's a lot of important differences too. But, you know, we all know that little children, you know, they're all the time handling stuff. Just looking at it isn't enough. Well, of course, dogs don't have opposable thumbs, so they can't, you know, they can't handle stuff with their paws. Well, they do it with their mouth. And so it's actually fairly normal for them to be mouthing and getting their mouth all over stuff. But if they are spending enough time with their litter mates and their mother, and they're all teachers of each other, they can learn where the appropriate boundaries are. So if your new puppy or your adult dog who never really got the message is doing that stuff, you got to remember that punishment is not the answer, because if you punish immediately, strongly enough, and every single time, you can reduce the frequency of the behavior, but there's never anything about punishment that teaches the dog what to do instead of the punished behavior. And there's some very important other considerations, including a study I have here on people who've administered punishment and how they end up. We'll talk about that as well. Oh, Charlene. Oh, Centennial, Colorado. Hey, that's a very cool place. I've been there. I'm so glad you came. So, What about these aggressive puppies? Well, you know, a lot of people think that they're trying to establish their dominance in the hierarchy of the home. No, not towards their person, they're not. Because when we look at how dogs developed, how they were evolved away from their wild forebears, the wolves, it was the ones who didn't fear the humans as much, but were willing to work for food, that those people figured out, hey, you know, here's a species that could work for us, could help us hunt. So what we're going to do is reinforce them for coming near us. And that genetic tendency has been developed in this species, and it's not in the wolf because they're a wild animal that naturally has a lot of fear of humans. And so our dogs do not look to us like, okay, let's duke it out here and see who's going to come out ahead on this. That's not what we do with our dogs. Canine-specific leadership can really work, because if our dogs understand what we're doing, then they can follow and they don't have to be anxious about it. And of course, there are people who say, oh, okay, canine-specific leadership. We get out on all fours and we growl or we bite them. No. Let's do it like a person who understands that stuff. Okay? So what we're going to do is, instead of turning them on their back and growling and snapping at them, or picking them up by the scruff of the neck and scaring them, let's establish a healthy, appropriate leader-subordinate relationship. Now, of course, Miss America here, I still think of her as a puppy because she was a baby when we got her, and she's only 13 now, so I think that qualifies her still as a puppy, doesn't it? Anyway. Especially a border collie. That's right. Thank you, Carolyn. So, so let me tell you a story about a fellow who I encountered very recently on what we call a Zoom group conference. My schedule is, well, we can always schedule people for individual behavior consultations with their dogs and cats, but the schedule's getting full, and sometimes people say, look, maybe I don't want to invest in a 2-hour consultation and everything that goes along with that. Maybe I just want to gather some information and get more answers to questions. So what we're doing now, hi Charlene, is we are offering also, additionally, these conferences of groups of 4 people or 4 families, some for cats, some for dogs. We don't mix them up. And people can bring any problem they want to the table. You can just call my office, go to my website, drjeffnickel.com, drjeff, N-I-C-H-O-L, and you can sign up for a group conference. Oh, Isabella, oh, you're welcome. And thank you for showing up. You're always very good, and Miss America too. She's very happy to be here as well, and same thing with Gaston and Tony. They always enjoy these events. So we're having this Zoom group conference, and had one man in particular, I'll call him Bob, and his dog, I'm going to call her Netta. And he sent me a video ahead of time, and his complaint, his problem with Netta, she was a very sweet dog, only had one problem, and that is she was food aggressive, and he wanted to know what to do about this. Now, Netta was about 6 months old, and so in the video, he's got a bowl of dog food, and he tells Netta to sit, and she's already learned that. It was just beautiful. I mean, you could tell immediately by her body signaling, very sweet dog, and you could also tell by the way Bob interacted with her that he's a very nice man, and he loves that puppy, and he wants very much to do the right thing, like just about everybody, really, you know? I mean, people who love pets, I mean, how far wrong can they go? A few maybe, but most not so much. So anyway, he tells Netta to sit, and she sits. She's a good girl, and he puts this brimming bowl of dry dog food on the floor. I mean, it's like, you know, cornucopia, okay? So she dives in, and she eats like there's no tomorrow, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. And so then he pushes her on the flank, and she growls at him, and he's demonstrating his problem. Why is he messing with his dog? And he went on to tell me during the conference that he just frequently takes the dog's food away, as he has been taught by well-meaning folks who believe that that somehow makes sense. And she's been growling at him, and he doesn't know what the heck to do about it. Well, this was one of those problems that actually had a relatively simple solution, and that is feed a dog and leave them alone. Literally. Put them in another room, close the door. That's what we do with this puppy right here, Miss America. I just put the food down on the floor. Now, sometimes I've gone in the room to do the laundry or something. Well, thank you for the hearts. And I leave her alone, and she doesn't have a problem. But our two cats, Tony here, the gray guy, who's drinking water from my water glass on the floor, by the way. Good thing you can't get coronavirus from your pets. Anyway, which he doesn't have anyway. But Tony here, the gray cat, has dove into Miss America's food bowl while she is eating, and she is not happy about that. Now, she's been fed twice a day like clockwork her entire life, except, as a baby more often. And she ought to know by now, shouldn't she, that the food is not going to run out at the nickel house, that we have a good enough income that we're always going to buy dog food, right? Well, dogs don't think like that. They are not people. They are certainly capable of reasoning and logic. We have excellent research to support that they make decisions. But they are dogs, and one important difference with their species compared with ours is that they are convinced that a life of scarcity will help them survive, because that is how they have managed to get by and thrive in harsh climates and conditions all over the globe for tens of thousands of years, because as much as they're part of a community similar to ours, families, a lot of those same concepts, but they believe that if there's a resource like food, and if I don't get it all right now, I won't get any of it. And nature isn't always kind. And there are some years there isn't much rain or other food resources, and some of them don't make it. And if I'm a dog, and there's what I regard as a limited amount of food, then I better get every bit of it that I can. Now, one of the mistakes that Bob was making, he didn't know this, was he was putting this large volume of food in front of Netta, and she had to have it all right now. So he went on to tell me that something else he's tried, very smart, most people don't know this, was he had gotten food puzzles. Now, I often show food toys, where the dog has to work the thing to get food loose. But a food puzzle is a different beast altogether. Well, not altogether, but it's rather different, because the dog's got to use their brain and figure it out. And you can go to this website called Nita Ottoson, and it's Nina, N-I-N-A, dash Ottoson, which is OTTOSSON.com. And this is a company, I think, out of Sweden. And they have a growing amount of different kinds of food puzzles, many of which are interactive. And so Bob was working these out with Netta together and building their rapport and their relationship. Now, here's what makes that the right thing, is you don't take the food puzzle to the dog, or you don't put it on the floor and give it to the dog and then approach. Because when somebody comes near a dog who is a survivor, they believe that they've got to get it all right now, then you can set up a problem that doesn't need to exist. And without meaning to, set the dog up for failure. And there's no benefit to that at all. Dogs are into scarcity. They have to get it all right now. So let's not mess with something that's completely normal to the species. Instead, this is Tony right here. He's the one who's tried to steal food from Miss America. We don't let him in there anymore. So, on the other hand, what I told Bob was do this. Put the food in the food puzzle, sit down, and then allow Netta to approach you. She will approach when she's ready, and the two of you, Tony, what the heck are you doing, boy? This is, oh, I see, there's a little bit of food, little kibbles underneath my research paper here. So she comes to him, and they work this out together, and it's small amounts of food, and she's not just fiendish about getting it all at once. So now Bob understands something about his dog, and that there's no point in challenging this dog for her food. She's not going to learn anything about his leadership position this way. Now, I haven't met Bob in person, but he was on this Zoom call, and you can read each other's body signaling and voice inflections and get to know people a little bit. And it was very clear the relief that this good man felt when he realized he didn't need to be doing this anymore. I said, Bob, you can quit that foolishness altogether. But I went on and gave him and everybody else who was part of this group something else that's very canine specific, that's fun and builds that rapport in a canine specific way. So What can we do to generate more awareness with prospective pet owners? In the UK, they ran a very effective ad saying a puppy is not just for Christmas. For example, any suggestions about what we can do beyond discouraging puppy mills and sponsoring shelters? Thank you. That's a really great point, Isabella. And you know, more knowledge is an excellent thing. And there are some excellent books on raising puppies. Now it's escaping me. If you put a comment in there about a puppy raising book, when I'm finished with this Facebook Live, it'll come to me and I will put it in my Facebook feed. I can think of several titles for adult dogs, but puppies in particular, I'll put a title in there and an author for you. Because more, and that, you know, that's the big reason I do these Facebook Lives, why I do my weekly newspaper column that I post as a media blog. And by the way, people don't have to attend this every Thursday evening, which I love it when you do, but you can subscribe to my website. Again, it's drjeffnicol.com, drjeffnicol.com. You go to the bottom of the home page and you can subscribe. It's free, of course. Just put your email address in every Tuesday morning in your email box. I'll send my weekly media blog, which is my question answer, nearly always question answer. Sometimes I just give information. It's in the Albuquerque Journal the previous Friday, and also includes this video. And you can share this stuff with people all over the United Kingdom, and I would love that because I'm trying my best to bring out the best in pets and their people, and thank you for doing the same thing. So, anyway, Netta just eats like a little fiend. And so the big takeaway here is never approach a dog who has food. Just leave them alone. And don't approach dogs who are sleeping either. You know the old saying, let a sleeping dog lie. There are good reasons for that. So Alyssa, thank you for coming. Do you have any advice for people who have adopted puppy mill rescues, former mill breeders? The behaviors are extra challenging. Here's the big reason that they're extra challenging. This doesn't solve the problem, but it helps you understand it. Early socialization is so essential to puppies. You know, they've done research recently on children and this, what they call pre-K education. Getting these kids in a learning environment, interacting with other, 2 and 3-year-old kids, away from home some of the time, with an adult that, is not their parent. And this is hugely important in their development. And they not only do better scholastically, they do better in life. Well, interestingly, another similarity with dogs is that we know from very robust research in puppies that their brains go through developmental anatomic changes. When they're born, it's not like their brain is fully developed. The rest of their nervous system isn't fully developed either. So between the ages of 7 and 12 weeks, it's a critical window of time. And when we expose puppies between that 5 and 12 weeks, gently, to lots of different kinds of people, men, women, kids, big people, little people, people of different races, cats, other dogs of different sizes and behaviors and temperaments, as long as it's pretty gentle. It can be some rough play, but nothing aggressive. Those dogs do so much better. Now, we know that a lot of the behaviors we see, including anxiety disorders and phobias like noise phobias, some of this stuff is genetically driven to a large extent, but environmental influences, what they're exposed to, means a great deal. And yes, adult life exposures are important, but the biggest window of time is 7 to 12 weeks. So you get these puppy mill puppies who are raised in a dog run, and maybe separated from their mother and their litter mates too early, because when they're, 5, 6 weeks, they're mighty cute, aren't they? And so easy to sell and adopt out, and we get behavior problems. And believe me, my schedule's plenty busy. If I could avoid some of this and prevent a lot of it, we'd be really doing a service. And so I'm not saying that after 12 weeks you shouldn't bother exposing puppies to people and other dogs and all that stuff. You certainly should. But rather than socializing after that window is closed at 12 weeks, maybe 14, we don't socialize after that. You hear people use that term. That ship has sailed. We're not going to socialize anymore. We can desensitize. In other words, diminish the sensitivity that a reactive dog or older puppy has to fear triggers. You can work on that. It takes a lot of repetition. And here's what's really important that many people don't understand is they take a puppy to, the home improvement store or to the pet supply store, and they keep hoping that, oh, come and give my dog a treat, come and do this, come and pet my dog. And this scared dog keeps getting approached by people who are much taller and approach and lean over and reach for, and they just get wigged out one time after another, and those neural circuits in the brain that support those behaviors and the long-term memory storage, those just keep getting stronger from repetition, and those puppies actually get worse, or adult dogs. And so instead, you want those puppies to start feeling a little bit more brave and choose to approach and get a little food reward. And people need to avoid the high squeaky voices and that happy tone that they think will help the puppy feel better. It actually doesn't. The best way to desensitize a dog who's fearful is to pretty much ignore and have a little bit of food, sit low, even sit on the floor, so you're not tall and the perception of threat is much less, and let them come to you. We forget that they need choices, and boy, they really do. And so, a point that I make at the end of every Facebook Live is that we should all take the time to give our dogs and cats the freedom to trust and to choose, because, they need to be able to make a difference in their own lives, and they need to be able to say, am I ready for this? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm ready to come a little closer. And it's very time consuming, but that is the only good way of doing it. Okay? So, let me read you this little research. Tony kind of trashed it and mangled the paper here a little bit, but he's a cat, and he was looking for one of these little cat treats that we give them. So this is one called Winners Don't Punish, and it was published in the journal Nature. Most everybody has heard of that. And they don't publish stuff unless it's very, very well supported. And so these are just a few points from the abstract. A key aspect of human behavior is cooperation, which, by the way, this species here shares that with us. Cats, not so much. In a colony, they can with raising their young. No absolute rules, but dogs very much share that with humans. And we tend to help others even if it costs, us a little bit. That's called altruism. And there are a lot of species that do that. But recently there has been much interest in exploring the effect of costly punishment on human cooperation. Remember, this is a human study. It does not involve dogs, but the parallels are important, but also because, we pet parents are humans. And this is information you can share with people who make mistakes because it shows them what's in it for them. There needs to be something in it for everybody. Costly punishment means paying a cost for another individual to incur a cost. Now, what that means is that if we say, I don't like that behavior, I'm going to inflict an aversive punishment to make it stop. Okay? Well, what we're doing is we are causing another individual to pay a cost. But what is the cost to the punisher? Okay? And what they found, the upshot of this whole study was that those people who gain the highest total payoff tend not to use costly punishment because winners don't punish. Those three words are just the takeaway from this whole thing. Now, not just winners like you and I, the pet parents, but these guys too, is bringing out the best in them. And when we see dogs and study them in a free living context, we find that the leaders discipline, that is teach, which is a definition of the word discipline many people don't think about, by withholding privileges for the subordinates. And so that brings out something else, and then I'm going to explain what we do about those mouthy, nippy puppies. Okay, we're getting to that very briefly. So when you have a dog, and it's a brand new puppy, or if you've adopted an adult dog, and you want to establish the correct leader-subordinate relationship, and they are subordinates. They're men's and women's best friends, but they look to us to earn resources. And dogs believe that almost everything is a scarce, high-value resource. some higher value than others. So for example, there are two things that they don't have to ask Mother May I for: air to breathe and water to drink. Okay? They get that. They're entitled. But everything else actually is a privilege. And they regard, of course, any response from their person as a validation of their behavior of the moment. So, we have the situation with Bob and Netta in that video that he sent me prior to the group conference. And he did this wonderful thing where Netta can see the bowl of dog food. She knows what's about to happen. Dogs are really big on predictors. She sees the bowl. She knows that predicts food, right? But he said, Netta, sit. And she immediately sat. And then he put the food down. She earned the privilege of access to food. And you think, wait a minute. I don't want my dog to believe that food is a privilege. This dog is part of the family. This dog has a right. Yeah, from the human perspective. But why are we trying to teach our dogs to speak a human language? We're smarter than they are. I know it doesn't seem that way all the time, but we are. And we humans can learn canine leadership much better than our dogs can learn canine or human followership. So let's not try to teach them how to interact on a human level. Let's be canine leaders and make it easy for them to succeed. So they have to earn everything from their leader. Well, then let's do that. So for example, who wants a dog who barges out the door and knocks people over when you open it? So what I do with this dog to make it easy for her to succeed is I have her sit actually around a little bit of a corner near our back door, and I have her sit there and wait, and then I go open the door. I might tell her it's okay to run through in a few seconds. Thank you for those hearts. Or I might wait 5 seconds or 10, and I vary it. And her job is to watch her leader for the opportunity. And then she's sitting, and I go, okay. And she runs out. And the same thing when she comes in. And she has to earn her food. She has to sit, and then I say, okay. You can use any release word. I use okay. You could use bologna sandwich if you want, as long as it's the same thing and the dog understands it's consistent. So the same is true if you want your dog to jump onto the furniture. Earn the privilege, okay? Now, biting and mouthing your hand is not a privilege, and it isn't a right. It's a no-no, okay? It's taboo. And almost 13-year-old Irish, definitely Irish setter, I'm assuming, clever cat is privileged to food. They finished off the treats and they left. Yeah, how about that, Isabella? Yeah, they've caught on right away. They're not on the table anymore. So, okay, Irish, I'm assuming Irish Terrier or maybe Irish Setter, definitely wants to make the choice of when he gets up to go downstairs. Lots of patience required, or he growls. Okay, let me help you with this. Miss America here. Girlfriend, would you sit up? Thank you, dear. She's wearing a leash on her collar. Now, she doesn't have to drag this around the house, but a lot of dogs, it's best if they do. They drag the leash around, and so we call it a drag line. And if you're raising a new puppy or you're fostering, use a drag line because you can ignore bad behavior just as a canine leader would. I mean, completely ignore. But then you can create distance from the context and lead the dog away while completely ignoring. So, for example, let's say Miss America is just a baby and she's starting to mouth me, and that's not okay. If I respond and say no or make a reprimand of it, she believes her leader just reinforced her because interaction with the leader is another privilege. And if I give her that, she just earned it and I validated the mouthing. Let's not do that, okay? Let's ignore it if we don't want it. Get up and walk a few steps away to get her out of the context and then give a command, like a sit command, and then immediately reinforce with a little dog biscuit. Okay, from the treat bag, by the way, which I'm wearing on my hip. So if you're raising a dog, carry treats, okay? Because they earn food from their leader, and it helps establish that I have the resources because I'm your canine leader. You can have them, you just have to earn them. And here's how you do it, okay? But you set them up for success by immediately, just like a leader of a canine social group would do, we ignore that mouthing, nipping behavior. We take our hands away, we stand up, we act as though there's no such thing as that dog. Take a few steps away, lead with the leash, change the context, and then give a command and reinforce. Now, you can also, if you carry like a rawhide chew or some other toy in your pocket that that dog really likes, then you can ignore, lead a few steps away, and then pop that toy into the puppy's mouth. So the puppy says, hey, I feel like chewing something. here's a toy. Okay, this wonderful dog here, my excellent Airedale, Juan Gomez, wonderful obedience competition dog. He was nationally ranked one year. Had got a utility title through the AKC on him. I mean, he was great. He did that stuff when he was a baby. Mouthy, mouthy, mouthy. This puppy, not so much, but he was a mouthy little guy. And so I always had a toy and popped it into his mouth. You know, ignored, created a little distance, popped the toy into his mouth, telling him how good he was. And all his life, whenever he got excited, you know, the mouthing thing was long abandoned. But whenever he got excited, he would grab a toy and run around and play with it. Because that's what he did instead. It's what we call a response substitution. The stimulus is the same. The response is what we do differently. Oh, Joy, you're here. Joy is a wonderful trainer, and when she lived in Albuquerque, when I needed hands-on help for my cases with pet parents, I said, I want you to start doing this at home, and if you need help, Joy can come to your house and help you make it happen. And she did, and then Joy moved away. So Joy, anyway, thank you for coming to the Facebook Live. Sure miss listening from you. So many times I say to myself, I wish Dr. Nickel were here in Washington. Well, I wish you were here in New Mexico. I'm not going there, but you can come back. I have work for you if you want it. So, anyway, there is absolutely no research supporting the value of punishment, but a ton of it supporting the damage that it can do. And so, like Bob with Netta, if you have made some of these mistakes, don't feel bad. You're in good company. Just bring out the best in your dog, and everybody feels better. You know, I have known so many people who've screwed up child raising. They've screwed up pet raising. They've screwed up parenting their own inner child. And when they learn that you don't have to beat yourself up anymore, that you can forgive, and by the way, pets are mighty good teachers of that, then you can let your shoulders relax and you can go on and do it right. Because, you know, we all make mistakes. And dogs, pets, they can learn at any time during a relationship that they can trust us not to intimidate them. Boy, they forgive like nobody's business. And what a great thing it is to be able to let go of that old stuff and just learn to do it a new way. So take that time to build a foundation of trust and choice and freedom for your pets. Because dogs and cats, just like people, here's a similarity, they can become obstinate if their leader only wants their needs met. So, are there any other questions? We had a lot of good participation. Carolyn, did I miss anything?
I got this iPad shut off. So
oh, okay. I think I have everybody here. So thanks everybody for you have one?
I thought someone had a question a little further up.
Good plan, Charlene said. Thank you.
Oh, someone asked about if one of the cats got a haircut.
Oh, I missed that one. No, but just before we started this, I found a little mat on Tony's side that I pulled off. Tony's 14. He'll be 15 in November. And the thing that people don't remember, well, you don't think about it because they're small and they fake it, is cats can be very prone to arthritic pain as they get older. You think, well, they're just carrying 10 pounds on this little frame. How can that happen? Well, it does. And you don't see them limp because cats are not only a predator species, they're also a prey species. And it all, again, comes from research on how they behave in the wild. And that is that if they show their weakness, they could be somebody's lunch. And so as a species, they have evolved for purposes of survival, natural selection, not to show pain. And so we veterinarians have to be very crafty, frankly, about how we diagnose pain. And some behaviors in cats, we go, you know, I haven't been able to demonstrate it on exam, but I'm strongly suspicious. I'm taking a hip x-ray of this cat, or shoulder x-rays, and we find it, we start treating them with pain management, and not only does their quality of life improve, but very often their behaviors do as well, because so many behaviors, especially anxiety-related behaviors, are much worse if there's unmanaged pain. So, yeah, we're looking for it all the time. So thank you again, everybody, for participating, for spending some time with me, and I hope everybody's getting their vaccine. I read today that pretty soon the supply will outstrip the demand, which is a little discouraging that there are some people who aren't getting this thing because it's in everybody's interest to be protected. So thanks everybody for being careful and for getting vaccinated, and we're going to get through this thing. And thank goodness we've had our pets to help us to survive this whole thing.